your child isn't talking much yet, one of the most important questions to ask isn't how many words can they say, it's how much do they understand? That's where receptive language skills come in. Receptive language skills are the ability to understand words, directions, questions, and meaning from the people around us. They're an important part of communication development, and they can give us really valuable information about how a child is learning and processing language. Hi, I am Sarah Lutz. I'm an early intervention teacher and the creator of First Words Dance Party. For more than 15 years, I've helped families support communication development in young children with developmental delays, including speech and language delays. In this video, we'll talk about what receptive language skills are, what receptive language skills typically look like at different ages, signs of a receptive language delay, and simple ways to support language growth at home. We'll also discuss the difference between receptive and expressive language and why understanding both can help you better support your child's communication journey. So let's start with the basics. What exactly are receptive language skills? Simply put, receptive language is the ability to understand language. It includes understanding words, directions, questions, concepts, and meaning from the people around us. For example, when a baby turns toward their name, a toddler brings you shoes when you say, "Let's go outside," or a preschooler follows a direction like, "Put your book in the bin and line up." They're demonstrating receptive language skills. Receptive language also includes understanding a wide variety of words. A toddler with a solid receptive vocabulary understands not only object words like book and ball, but they also understand descriptive words, action words, pronouns, words that indicate possession and verb tense like past tense and future tense. One of the reasons that receptive language is so important is that children typically understand many more words than they can use themselves. Before children can express their thoughts and ideas, they first need opportunities to understand the language they hear throughout the day. So let's take a closer look at what receptive language milestones typically look like as children grow. Let's take a look at some general examples of receptive language development at different ages. During the first year of life, babies begin learning that words are symbols that carry meaning. Some of the very first receptive language milestones that babies will meet by their first birthday include responding to their name, showing understanding of common words like bye-bye, ball, and bottle, and looking toward people when they hear them named in a question, like, "Where's Mama?" or "Where's Daddy?" As children move into the toddler years, they rapidly begin to understand everyday words for familiar objects and people. Between 12 and 24 months, milestones include identifying body parts when you ask a question like, "Where are your eyes?" and pointing to a picture in a book when you say, "Where's the puppy?" Toddlers of this age also move beyond simple commands like, "Come here," and they follow simple directions that involve objects like, "Get your cup" or "Turn off the light." Between ages 2 and 3, toddlers begin understanding a wider variety of words and concepts. And this includes following directions with 2 or more steps, like "Get your book and then put it in your backpack," and understanding almost everything that is said to them in conversation. Now remember that these are milestones, meaning that research tells us that the majority of children demonstrate these skills in line with these ages. Some kids will hit these receptive language milestones sooner than others, and that's to be expected. But if a kiddo isn't hitting their milestones, it can be a sign that they would benefit from early intervention to support them in gaining receptive language skills. At this point, you may be wondering how receptive language relates to expressive language. While receptive language is the ability to understand language, expressive language is the ability to communicate thoughts, wants, needs, and ideas with others. And a simple way to think about that is that receptive language is what a child understands, while expressive language is what a child can express. Here's something many parents are surprised to learn. It's very common for receptive and expressive language skills to develop at different rates. For example, a child may understand hundreds of words and follow directions throughout their day, but only use a handful of words themselves. In this very common example, the child's receptive language skills are right on track, while their expressive language skills are delayed. And when one area of language is significantly higher than the other, we call this a discrepancy. Other children may have challenges in both understanding and using language. And when a child has significant difficulties in both areas, a professional may diagnose a mixed receptive expressive language disorder. Understanding the difference between receptive and expressive language can help us better understand a child's unique communication profile. And it also helps us identify where a child may need additional support. Now that we've talked about what receptive language skills are and how they develop, let's take a look at some signs that a child may be experiencing a receptive language delay. So what are some signs that a child may be experiencing a receptive language delay? Well, because receptive language is about understanding language, challenges in this area often show up when a child has difficulty understanding the words, directions, questions, or concepts being used around them. For example, a child with a receptive language delay may have difficulty following simple directions, especially without visual cues or extra support. They might struggle to identify familiar objects, pictures, or body parts, and they may have difficulty answering questions. You might notice that you have to repeat yourself many times or physically support your child to follow directions. Times of transition can be especially challenging because the child doesn't understand what is happening as an activity ends. You might notice lots of tantrums and meltdowns in general. And again, these upsets frequently happen because the child isn't processing the language around them to help them understand and cope. One thing that can make receptive language delays difficult to identify is that they're often less obvious than expressive language delays. When a child isn't talking, it's usually easier to notice. It's more measurable when you can count the number of words your child says. But when a child is having difficulty understanding language, those challenges can sometimes be mistaken for not paying attention or not listening. And understandably, toddlers are so little that oftentimes parents aren't sure what a child should be able to understand or do for their age. If you have concerns about your child's language development, talking with your pediatrician, an early intervention provider, or a speech language pathologist can be a great place to start. The good news is that there are many simple ways to support receptive language skills during everyday routines and activities at home. If you're looking for ways to support receptive language skills at home, the good news is you don't need expensive materials or special training. Some of the best opportunities for language learning happen during everyday interactions. One simple strategy is looking at books together. As you read, point to the pictures as you name and talk about them, and then ask your child to identify it. This helps children connect words with meaning and the symbols of the pictures to build their receptive vocabulary. You can do something similar throughout the day by naming and identifying body parts. During bath time, getting dressed, or diaper changes, you might say things like, "Where's your nose?" or "Show me your feet," and then point to them to model the answer. Another helpful strategy is using self-talk and parallel talk. Self-talk is when you describe what you're doing. For example, you might say, "I'm pouring the milk," or "I'm putting on my shoes." Parallel talk is when you describe what your child is doing. You might say, "You're building a tower," or "You're pushing the car." Whether you're cooking, folding laundry, going for a walk, there are countless opportunities to talk about what you're doing, what your child is doing, and what's happening around them. These strategies give children repeated opportunities to hear language connected to real hands-on experiences. You can also support receptive language by showing your child a visual while giving them a simple direction during everyday routines. For example, show them their bath toy as you say, "It's time for bath," or show them their shoes when you say, "It's time to clean up and get in the car." Don't forget about play. Children learn language best when they're engaged, connected, and having fun. Joining them in play creates natural opportunities for language learning throughout the day. Just use those parallel and self-talk strategies to talk about what you're doing and what they're doing, and you'll be providing so much rich language. Music can also be a powerful tool for building receptive language skills. Songs naturally combine repetition, movement, gestures, visuals, and shared attention. These supports can help children better understand and remember the language they're hearing in a way that's fun and engaging. And in fact, that's exactly why I started writing songs for speech therapy. As an early intervention teacher, I saw how music could help make language more meaningful and easier for children to learn. So for example, in the song "It's a Dance Party," Children hear and practice body part vocabulary like eyes, nose, ears, hands, and feet while learning the concepts up and down through movement and lyrics like pick me up, put your hands up, and get down. By pairing language with music, visuals, and actions, children have multiple ways to hear, understand, and connect with the words and the concepts. Receptive language skills are an important part of communication development. Before children can use language to express their thoughts, wants, and ideas, they first need opportunities to understand the language they hear every day. Remember, communication development isn't just about the words a child can say, it's also about the words they understand. Whether your child is beginning to respond to their name, follow simple directions, identify familiar objects, or understand more complex language, each of these skills plays an important role in building a strong foundation for communication. If you're looking for simple ways to support speech and language through music, be sure to explore the resources and music from First Words Dance Party, including a free guide of 5 easy steps to kickstart communication with music for speech therapy at home. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe for strategies and music for speech and language development.